everyone! In this video I'm going to be reviewing episodes 3 and 4 of Shadowhunters, Parabatai Lost, and The Day of Wrath. I'm reviewing these two episodes together because last week I didn't find time to be able to film a review for episode 3 because I was extremely busy, so I thought I would just smush them together and let's jump right into it. Overall, my thoughts were that episode 3, it had great elements and parts of the plot added into it that I really enjoyed, but then other things that were sort of added in that I thought were quite unnecessary. It was okay. It was good. The episode 3 and 4 are definitely the episodes where I began to realize just how much they were going to diverge from the books. I feel like they're taking a lot of book content and they're sort of either fleshing it out or they're transforming it into something completely new. I haven't really decided whether I like or dislike it because obviously a lot of development still have to take place. So I'm just going to talk about just generally how I thought about certain things that they're doing. But overall, I definitely thought episode 4 was so far probably the best executed episode of the season so far. The pacing was much better. The dialogue was much better. I think we only had about one cringy line. The acting has improved like so vastly, like exponentially. It went like upwards, especially Clary and Jace's acting. I really think that Kat is doing such an amazing job as Clary, and I think Dom is just really, showing those emotions more than he did in episode 1, and he also has so much better lines than in the first season, which is hopefully due to the fact that the writers have changed. In episode 4, there's not really much else I can say in the non-spoiler section, so if you want to go ahead and watch it and come back, you can discuss it. Other than that, yeah, I liked the episodes, what can I say? So episode 3 starts off where we left off in episode 2 with Alec being in a situation where he's almost dying. I don't really know how to feel about this whole Adamus tracking sickness thing, and I definitely don't see how it's relevant to sort of like the general storyline or how it makes sense like in just like the Shadowhunter world, but we'll work with it. First of all, the flashbacks. I actually really enjoyed the flashbacks. I specifically liked the first flashbacks that they did, which was with the really young Jace and the really young Alec. I think they were probably supposed to be like 8, 9 years old, and I really enjoyed them. I thought Jace and Alec looked like themselves. They actually looked like Jace and they actually looked like Alec, and they performed in a way that was so similar to how their characters were in the books, especially Jace. In fact, I would probably say that Jace's flashback character is more like him than any of the other Jace moments that we've seen in the show so far. And Alec actually does look like a little mini-me version of him, which was really sweet. But I do have to say that the second flashbacks I thought were very well executed. I thought it was really great to see Alec kind of coming out of the closet to Izzy. I thought that moment was very touching and sort of, it was significant to Alec's personality and the relationship between Alec and Izzy. But I felt like it was extremely unnecessary to change the actors for the second flashback. I mean, I don't know how old they're supposed to be. Like, they're probably supposed to be like 15, 16 years old, and I thought it was quite strange how they decided to just like take completely new actors when they could have taken Dom and Emerald, just them, dressed up a bit younger, sort of dressed down, made them look more childish. That would have made much more sense to me. Overall, I think that Jace's lines and Clary's lines are just so much more on par with what we know from the books. Clary is acting a lot more sort of tough and badass and isn't really acting like this damsel in distress like she did in the first season. Jace is also, you can really tell that the writers have really built up on his character, and he's much more like the Jace that we know. He's talking from a deeper part of him. He's talking about more sort of dangerous topics. You can tell that he's really struggling between, fitting in with Valentine, but also being loyal to the Clave, and I thought that was really, really well executed by Dom. I especially loved that scene where Clary sort of struts into the Institute all soaking wet, and she just sort of pushes her mom away, and she just looked very fierce, and I just felt like it was something that Clary would actually do. I especially love the scene between Magnus and Jocelyn, where Magnus accuses Jocelyn of basically brainwashing Clary for her whole life, and I thought that was very well done as well. Now we come to Maya. Maya is introduced for the first time in this episode, and I really liked her. I thought that her character was a bit different from the books, and I'm not sure whether I find that new character better or worse, but I really liked Maya. Maya seems very tough. Maya seems very sort of no-nonsense. I really liked the way that she was portrayed. However, I think that it was very weird how they had this whole chase going on between the wolves and Jace, Again, it felt very unnecessary to sort of the overarching plot. I understand that, you know, Jace had to try to get to Alec and the wolves were sort of stopping him from doing that. It was supposed to be like this hindrance that Jace had to overcome. But overall, it felt very strange how he ended up in a mundane hospital. And it was even stranger when Maya suddenly transformed herself into a werewolf right there in the hospital. I mean, I don't know, the transformation itself, first of all, was very weird. The CGI, it was sort of gross, cool, but on the other hand, a bit strange all in one. But I really don't understand why they had to have her transform in the hospital. I don't know, why would Maya do that? Maya already as a werewolf can run much faster than normal humans. She's much stronger than normal humans. There was no need for her to transform in a mundane hospital and sort of risk people seeing them. Also, that mundane in the hospital wasn't even supposed to be able to have seen Maya as a werewolf because mundanes that don't have the sight wouldn't be able to see them. It would have made much more sense to me for Maya to have transformed later on in the episode when she was standing in between two other werewolves and there was this confrontation going on with Luke. I think that would have made a lot more sense and it would have felt more threatening than in the hospital where there were like 1,000 other witnesses around to see what was going on. Speaking of that last scene with Maya and Luke, one of the things that really got to me, sort of bothered me, was when Luke said to Maya, you know, Maya, stand down. It actually felt like she was sort of going against his command. She first, like, she sort of spoke back to him. She was quite snappy and you could tell on her face that she wasn't necessarily ready to give up on capturing Jace. And for me, that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way, especially if you know how the packs work. When the alpha gives the command, the other wolves are basically supposed to obey his command. And also Maya from the books, we know that she respects Luke a lot and she looks up to him. It just made no sense to me for Maya to sort of hesitate while Luke was commanding her to do something. I especially enjoyed the scene where Simon was looking for his mom and Clary was there helping him track her. I'm very interested in seeing where this is going because it seems like Simon's mom would be the kind of person who would accept him for a vampire and who wouldn't be too terrified of it, but as we all know from the books, Simon's mom sort of goes crazy. She completely shuns him. She doesn't want anything to do with him anymore, and I'm wondering whether they're going to keep that plot arc or whether she's going to be more of a loose, accepting, vampire-loving mother. Both ways would be interesting. I think if Simon's mom would react the way that she reacted in the books, it would give Simon a lot more opportunity to grow in himself, to grow as a vampire, and to grow as a human. Then we come to the end with the Parabatai ceremony. Now, this was the first time in Shadowhunters where I felt like actual sadness slash happiness slash like trauma in my heart, and I actually started crying at the end of the episode. Seeing the Parabatai ceremony was just so touching, and it really just like brought me back all the feels from the Mortal Instruments series. It brought back a lot of feels from Lady Midnight, especially with Emma and Julian. It was really well done. The only complaint that I had was that the ceremony was sort of cut off in a lot of pieces, as you saw Jace and Alec reconnecting in real life and you saw Jace trying to save Alec, and they cut off the end and just had Jace sort of monologue it through, and it would have been much nicer to actually see the end of the Parabatai ceremony and see how they drew the runes on each other, which really showed the bond between them. Obviously Alec wakes up and everything's good, and I was just left there in absolute tears, and the episode was over and I was like, what? Moving on to episode 4, Day of Wrath. This episode started really, really great. I absolutely loved Clary going to the City of Bones, and it was so awesome to see the City of Bones just like expanded and like really massive like under her, and she looked down onto it. It was just really great, and it really just shows how much their budget from season 1 improved, because in season 1 the City of Bones was literally just like this pathway that they walked through, and there were a couple of like skulls here and there, and it just didn't feel as imposing and as like creepy as it did in the books, but I thought it was great. I especially loved how they added in the screaming. I just loved that interaction between Clary and Jace. It felt so real and genuine, and you could really show the struggle that both Clary and Jace have, you know, in their expressions and in what they're saying. Clary is very much trying to accept him as her brother and as part of her family, and Jace is very much sort of fighting against that, and is sort of half trying to make her see that she should love him, but then on the other hand trying to push her away. It was just very Clary and Jace-like. I also found the pacing in episodes 3 and 4 just so much better than the pacing in the last episodes. I loved how they always, you know, showed a shot of like the outside of the Institute or like New York or any other place before they sort of went into the episode, and it didn't feel as chopped off. I really appreciate that, and I saw a great improvement already. I don't know if you guys did, but I'm really happy with that. Another scene that I really enjoyed was Alec and Clary and the banter between them. It was just hilarious to see Clary sort of provoking him, Alec sort of being his sort of usual somber self. And it was also really great to see Clary sort of being on Alec and Isabel's team. And it was also especially touching to see her interact with that mundane who has been possessed by a demon. It was something that felt very Clary-like, and it just really touched me. Now, another thing that I really enjoyed the interactions between Raphael and Magnus. It was just really great to see Magnus sort of being this big dad for Raphael and Simon both, especially knowing Magnus's backstory from the Mortal Instruments. It was something that was just very special to me. I also enjoyed how Camille was sort of reintroduced into season 2. It felt a lot more natural. It felt a lot more like she was an actual sort of threat, but it also felt like Camille and Magnus had some sort of issues that they had to resolve. And it was really nice and touching to see Magnus choosing, you know, Simon and Raphael over Camille. Another thing that I really loved was the fact that Clary mentioned Demon Ichor. I know that she pronounced it Icor. I don't know, I've always pronounced it Ichor in my head. Who knows? It was just like this tiny detail from the books that, you know, we see is present throughout all of the demon killings, but that they left out of the show, and it was so nice to see that, and I'm just so happy about it. I also love how you saw more parts of the Institute. I love how they've expanded on that, just like in general in season 2. I love the conversation that Izzy and Clary were having when they were walking in the underground tunnels. It felt very bonding. One of the things that I absolutely love about Shadowhunters is that they've expanded on Clary and Izzy's relationship. They've made it more of a loving, mutual relationship rather than the sort of hostile relationship that they had in the beginning in the books. And that's something that I really commend, because we need a lot more female relationships in movies and books where females aren't constantly trying to compete with each other, and like the feminist in me was just so happy about it. Now, Trial by Sword was both very interesting and very strange. I really enjoyed the scene. The only thing that I found is extremely weird was the way that Aldertree kept asking Jace about Clary and about their relationship. I actually think that it's probably foreshadowing Sebastian's entrance into the show. A lot of people have been speculating about this, have been thinking that maybe Aldertree is actually really Sebastian with a shape-shifting rune. The thing that really sort of confirmed it most for me was when he said, "I know more about you and your dad than you know." Who else besides Sebastian would know so much about Jace and about Valentine, and who would try to like undermine Jace and undermine sort of the Clave? And you can definitely tell that Aldertree sort of has his own motives, especially when you see him torturing Raphael. And it was just like, I definitely think that Aldertree is actually Sebastian, especially now that we know who's playing Sebastian, who is an amazing Sebastian in my opinion. I think he looks exactly how I pictured him in my mind. I'm hoping that he'll look less cute when he's actually portraying Sebastian, but I'm overall really happy with it. Other than that, the Trial by Sword was extremely interesting. It was extremely interesting to see the swords effect on Jace. We don't really see this happening in either City of Bones and City of Ashes. The only time we see that happening was when Jace was holding the sword and he sees the demons on Valentine's ship. It was really great to see him really struggling, and you could see the truth sort of being ripped from his mouth. And it was especially touching in the end when Aldertree sentenced Jace to a lifelong imprisonment, and then he was about to cut his own throat before the Silent Brothers stopped him. And it felt like a very Jace thing to do, because we all know that Jace would rather die than quit being a Shadowhunter. Now I'm gonna have to go into certain things that I don't really understand. So the two main points I kind of have issues with. The first thing is the heat signature rune. I actually think it was an interesting addition, but there are two sort of concerns that pop up for me, and that's, first of all, why are they only introducing the heat signature rune right now? If this is such a big part of the Shadow world, why wouldn't they have used this rune in season 1? I don't necessarily have an issue with them introducing the heat signature rune because it's not something from the books. I just think that they're being extremely inconsistent and sort of messy when you're considering the other, you know, couple episodes that we've had from the show, and it just seems very inconsistent and choppy. So why wouldn't they have used it before? Also, there's so much technology around. There's so much technology, and runes take a lot of energy out of you. We all know that the sensor that in the books was actually the device that they all used to detect demon activities in the books, and it felt very sort of natural to me, especially considering that the show is taking a more technological turn on this. It would have made a lot more sense to me that they would have used some form of technology for this, like a sensor, and it would have been a great way to introduce the sensor, especially because there are a lot of roots from the infernal devices, and I just thought that they were missing out on that. They're taking out things from the different parts of the story, and they're really sort of missing out on ways that they could really flesh out the show and really connect, you know, the infernal devices and the immortal instruments and the dark artifices, and they're just taking so much away from that. And the second thing that I didn't really agree with so much was the fact that the Shadowhunters were able to have been possessed by demons. As we can see in the show, there are basically runes for everything. So why wouldn't there have been a rune that would have prevented a demon from entering a Shadowhunter? From the books, we all know that there is this ceremony that a young Shadowhunter goes through at a very, very young age, which is literally supposed to be against demon possession, and that is basically what sort of propels the plot of City of Fallen Angels and City of Lost Souls. But if we're going along with sort of like the show's dynamics and the show's laws that they've created themselves for the Shadowhunter world, why wouldn't they have had a rune to protect themselves against this? This just didn't really make much sense to me. The only possible explanation that I have is that Valentine himself, because of his experiments, has found a way to sort of get around that. And now we get to Jocelyn dying. Now, I'm actually not that upset about this because it is very true. Jocelyn just doesn't really add a lot to the show. She's very dispensable. She has been causing nothing but trouble, and so I completely understand the decision of the writers to kill her off. I'm very excited to see where they're going with this, especially because the writers have mentioned that it was meant to be a plot device to allow Clary's character to mature and grow separately from her mother, and I'm really interested to see how they're doing that, or whether it's just a plot device for the next episode, which would be kind of disappointing. The only concern I have is how that's going to affect Luke's relationship in the future and whether she's ever gonna come back. But other than that, I'm not really gonna say too much about it. I'm not really like sort of super happy about it, but I'm also not upset about it. So I'm just gonna see how this develops, and hopefully we'll learn something interesting from this. Also, what I extremely really appreciated again was that scene when Jace was in the prison cell, and then the silent brother comes and he has this knife popping out of his back, and he just like collapses, and before he collapses he says, "Please help me." And I think that was just really well done. Again, it really showed, you know, a silent brother. Like in the books, they don't ever talk, and so when they talk, there must have been something that caused them so much fright and so much fear that it would be stronger than any of the runes that they had taken on themselves, and it would have made them talk. It was just so chilling to see that, and a great addition from the book, especially that scene with Valentine when Valentine comes and tries to convince Jace to leave with him. That was also just something that was taken right out of the book, and I just loved it so much. The ending was also so emotional for me. I really loved how Izzy was sort of possessed by this demon, and then she was trying to kill Alec, and then she was trying to kill Clary, and it was just such a powerfully emotional scene, especially because Clary is sort of in this frenzy after losing her mother, and then only after Izzy dies does the full realization really hit her about, you know, oh my god, I've lost my mother, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do now, and it was so heartbreaking. I thought the ending was absolutely amazing. When you see Jace coming in with Alder Tree and you see him, you know, sort of struggling to go over to Clary or whether he shouldn't, and then he keeps himself back because Simon's there and he's gone to comfort Clary, and it really just shows the sort of battle and inner struggle that Jace is going through with loving Clary or not loving Clary. I think that was it for my sort of general thoughts. I did have one thing that I don't really understand, and this is something that I've noticed happening throughout the whole season 1 and all of the episodes from season 2, and that is that like when a Shadowhunter is injured, I don't know why this doesn't happen, but in the books it's like when you're injured you immediately take out your stele and you immediately start drawing an Iratzi rune, especially when Izzy was sort of lying there on the floor. Alec was sort of first, you know, cradling her and holding her, and only later did he take out his stele and activate her healing rune. A Shadowhunter would react immediately, would draw a healing rune on her immediately. Actually, the more that I think about it, the more that I realize it actually happens in every episode. Like someone gets hurt and they don't activate a healing rune, and it just makes no sense to me. Those are probably my only complaints that I have for these couple episodes. Especially episode 4, I found more positives to say about it than pretty much any other episode that I've reviewed so far, and so I'm really excited to go into episode 5 next week. I hope that you guys enjoyed this review. Please let me know what you guys thought about the show in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon with another review. Bye!